Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says rejection way out. The article here is speaking about one of the circulars issued by the Jammu and Kashmir administration. According to the circular, any individual who is involved in disturbing law and order, stone pelting cases or crimes prejudicial to the security of Jammu and Kashmir or to the security of India, in such a situation an individual will be denied the security clearance for the passport as well as the government jobs. How will the security forces be able to collect this information? They can look into the CCTV footages. They may also collect the photograph of that individual. They might also come up with videos as the corroborative evidence. They can also come up with audio clips as well. In case they have these evidences, in such a situation, the license or the permission that is required by the police personnel for the passport may be denied, and at the same time such individuals may not be awarded the government jobs. So this article here is speaking about all those laws, rules and regulations with respect to this denial of the passport rights to an individual, and at the same time that individual can he challenge this in the court of law. What are the laws that are present in India when it comes to the government jobs? Yes, every individual can be looked into by the employer when it comes to the previous antecedents. What exactly happens if the individual has to be recruited to one of the government jobs? What will the government do? The government will issue one of the forms. This forms will be like a questionnaire. This questionnaire will be one of the criminal antecedents. It will involve and ask questions whether the individual has been previously arrested. If he is arrested, was he convicted by the court of law? If he is not convicted, how many days was he detained? Such questions will be asked in the questionnaire. If the individual gives the right information, the government may look into it and may also reject the candidature. And if he is not convicted in the near future by the court of law, the government may accept the candidature for this government job. But when this candidate is given this form along with the questionnaire, he has to be truthful when he is giving these answers. In case in the near future the government does realize that this candidate has violated the rules and regulations, has lied to the government, in that case the government can reject his application, and if he is already appointed, may also remove him from this particular designation. In fact, we've also had the High Court as well as the Supreme Court of India, which has also given consent to the government of India as well as the governments of multiple states as well. There are a fixed criteria that the governments can come up with. If the candidates do not meet all these criteria established by the government protocols, in such a situation, the government can go ahead and remove this person from the government job. Now the question is, what if the candidate has suppressed some of the information? To answer this question, we have one of the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court, which is Avtar Singh versus the Union of India in 2016. This was a landmark judgment given by the Supreme Court of India. What did the Supreme Court say? Every candidate, if questions are asked by the government in the questionnaire, in the form, he has to rightfully answer this question. If there is some information which is suppressed by the candidate, in such a case, the government has every right to remove the candidature, in fact also dismiss that particular person from the service as well. What it means is that the candidate, even if he is absolved of all the charges in the near future, the candidate's candidature can be rejected by the government in this case. So according to the rules and regulations, if the government feels that there is a criminal precedent attached to an individual, yes, the government would be able to remove that person, dismiss that person, not provide him an opportunity for the government job. So it is rightfully right, says this article. Added to this, what if the person has to go outside India, for which what he requires is the passport? Can the government also come up with regulations or deny the permission to this individual? Yes, says this article. We have section 6 of 2 of the Indian Passports Act. Let's say there is an individual, he applies for the Indian passport, but the government does not give consent. The authorities do not give consent primarily because this person can be a threat to India as well as to the foreign relationship to the country that he is planning to go. When can a passport authority deny an applicant a passport? This will involve when the applicant is not a citizen of India, then the applicant may engage outside India in activities prejudicial to the country's sovereignty and integrity. So this person who lives India might become a threat in the near future to India as he may disturb the sovereignty and integrity of India. In such a case, the government may also not give permission as well, or that the applicant's departure may be detrimental to the country's security. There can be disturbance in the peace. The tranquility might be disturbed if this particular person goes outside the country, or that the person's presence abroad may also prejudice India's friendly relationship with a foreign country. We have good relationship with another country, and if this person goes out, gives some information that could harm the relationship between India and another country, in such a case, passport can also be denied by the government of India. Added to these, there are other conditions as well. What are these conditions? Let's say there is an individual who is sentenced to not less than 2 years in the 5 preceding years. He has violated the moral turpitude. In such a situation, passport can be denied as well. In case there are proceedings that are happening in the court of law, in such a case, it can also be rejected as well, or the central government feels that it could be a problem if given permission to this person, as this can be against the public security, public interest. In such a situation, the central government can also deny such an individual as well. Does this mean that the person may not be able to leave the country? Does this mean that the person does not have any legal remedy? No, he does have the legal remedy as well, and that is mentioned under section 22 of the Indian Passports Act of 1967. According to this section, it is granted the permission to the central government to exempt any person or a class of persons from the provisions of this very act. Added to this, the Ministry of External Affairs has also issued a notification which also provides relief to the citizens as well. How? This person who is not given permission by the central government, by the passport authorities, may also go to the court of law. So the court of law will give the permission to this person for a considerable period of time. It can be 1 month, it can be 2 months, it can be 3 months. So the court in India can give the permission after looking into his case. So then he goes to the central government. So the central government may allow this person to leave the country as well. So he has to get the permission from the court of law for a fixed period. If no fixed period is given in the order of the court, by default, such person may be given a time period of 1 year to leave the country, but he has to come back to the country within this time period. So he has to go to the court of law, seek the permission from the court of law, and if the court of law gives him permission for a fixed period, then he can leave the country taking the permission of the central government. If no time period is prescribed by the court of law, then the maximum period that he can leave India is for a period of 1 year. So we have the Delhi High Court, which has also upheld this section of the Indian Passports Act, which is that the government would be able to regulate or allow such people to leave the country or restrict their travel within the country. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Atlantic Meridional overturning circulation. Let us try and understand what is this concept all about. Before we understand this concept, what is an ocean current? An ocean current is nothing but a continuous, predictable, directional movement of the ocean water. As you can see from this image, there is a continuous movement of the ocean water. What does it depend on? It depends on the gravity, it depends on the Coriolis force, it depends on the density of the water, it also depends on the temperature as well. All these concepts add to the directional flow of the oceanic water. So what is an ocean current? It is a predictable continuous flow of water in the ocean because of the resulting forces that are acting on it. So it can move from one region to another, it can move from one place to another. All this is helping it, and the most important of all is the wind. So it is the wind which also helps in the movement of the oceanic water. When it comes to the oceanic water, it has two two directions. One is what is called as the horizontal direction. The other is what is called as the vertical direction. So what is this horizontal direction? If the oceanic current moves in a horizontal direction, that is what is called as the current. If it starts moving in the vertical direction, it can be split into upwelling as well as downwelling. What is this upwelling? Basically, you have the oceanic water which starts moving from the bottom of the ocean floor up towards the surface. As the very name denotes, it is upwelling, which means the water starts moving from the bottom of the ocean to the upper surface layer. Then we have the downwelling. So what does it denote? The water starts moving from the surface to the oceanic floor. On one side, there is upwelling that is happening. On the other side, there is downwelling that's happening. So this is what is called as ocean current. And in this ocean current, we have one of the current or the circulation movement called as the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. Where does this happen? This happens in the Atlantic Ocean. As the very name denotes, it is Atlantic, so it is happening in the Atlantic Ocean. It is meridional overturning circulation. What do we mean by this overturning circulation? Basically, you have this current. We have the warm current which is currently in the red as shown in the image. We also have the cold current as well as shown blue in this image. When it comes to the warm current, it usually flows from the equator towards the poles. When you look into this image, you have the warm current. It moves from the equator towards the poles. It moves from the equator towards the poles. So whenever you have the warm current, what happens? We have the equator where there is extreme presence of the sun rays. So what happens? The water gets heated up and it starts moving in a direction from the equator towards the poles. That is what is called as warm current. And when we look into the cold current, what happens? It moves from the pole towards the equator. So if you are looking into the northern hemisphere, what we have is a clockwise direction. If we look into the southern hemisphere, what we have is an anti-clockwise direction. So it means when it comes to the Atlantic region, we have the warm current. It moves in the form of Gulf Stream and it comes back towards the equator. So what we have is a clockwise direction. So it is going on top and it is coming back. This going on top and coming back is what is called as overturning circulation. So what is this overturning circulation? From the equator, it goes towards the poles and then comes back. That is what is called as the overturning circulation. So it makes a turn and comes back, which is what is called as overturning circulation. So where is it happening? It is happening in the Atlantic region. What are we discussing under this article? This article currently goes on to say that there is a tipping point with respect to the Gulf Stream. Let us try and understand what is this concept all about. When it comes to the Gulf Stream, where is it present? It is present on the eastern side of the Northern America. So what is it? It is a warm current. Because of the warm current, what does it do? As we have discussed, it is a directional flow. This Gulf Stream, which is a warm current, moves towards the poles, and as it moves towards the poles, it carries this warm water, it puts it along the European borders, thereby this region is not completely frozen. So what we have is mild cold conditions in this region. It is not as drastic as we see in Alaska. It is not as drastic as we see in Siberia. Why? Because this particular region is also soaked with warm water. So this Gulf Stream that we currently have is a warm current. The warm current is moving in a direction. It is flowing towards the western borders of the Europe, and as a result, what we have is a mild climatic conditions in this region. So what is happening here? The oceanic current is ensuring that there is a particular type of weather conditions in the western part of the Europe, and at the same time the same climatic conditions could also bring rainfall to the western part of the Europe as well. But according to the recent updates, because of the anthropogenic factors, because of the human induced pollution, what is happening? The pace at which, the speed at which this Gulf Stream has to flow is not flowing, and as a result there is an increase in the temperature which could be detrimental, says this article. So what is this article basically speaking? For thousands of years, because man has induced anthropogenic induced factors into the environment, which is why this whole Atlantic meridional overturning circulation has not remained stable in the last 15 years and it is weakening, says this article. Let me explain this with the help of a study. There were two studies that were conducted by the scientific community. One included the grains in the cores of the sediment from the ocean floor. The other is about the shipping speed. How does this work? Let's say we have the sediment at the ocean floor. If there is a particular speed of this oceanic current, it would be able to push these sediments along the oceanic floor. And at the same time, if you consider an hypothetical situation where there are no engines, there is no fuel that is being used, it is only moving along the speed of the oceanic current. In such a case, the shipping speed was also identified. So what they found was there was a drop in the speed of the ships, and at the same time these sediments were not carried easily by the currents in this region. So as a result, they came to a conclusion that the speed of this Gulf current in the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation has drastically reduced over a period of time. That is because of the prevailing conditions in the atmosphere. So the rising concentrations of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere tends to boost the temperature at the Earth's surface, and because the carbon dioxide is also increasing, it could eventually shut down the flow of the major ocean current. So because there is this action that is happening because of the carbon dioxide induced by the anthropogenic factors, the Gulf current, which is a warm current, is disturbed, and as a result the weather conditions in the Western European countries might get impacted. The rainfall and the climate and other conditions might also be impacted. So ultimately this could stall the ocean current and bring massive changes in the rainfall patterns across the globe, says this article. So basically, the article here is explaining about the negative impact of climate change with respect to the oceanic conditions. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Ladakh glacier retreat due to warming low winter precipitation finds the study. There is one of the institutes called as the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. This happens to be an autonomous body under the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. So kindly remember, it can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. So the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology is autonomous body under the Department of Science and Technology. What are the objectives of this institute? This institute is basically studying about glaciology, glacial health, monitors the dynamics, discharge past climatic conditions in and around the Himalayan region. So one of the major objectives of this particular institute is to undertake, promote, guide research and conduct researches in geology in the part of Himalaya. So this particular institute had recently conducted one of the study. A team of scientists from this institute ventured into a study into the least discovered part of the Himalayas. So where do they go? They go to this Pensilungpa Glacier. So kindly remember, Pensilungpa Glacier is part of Zanskar Valley, and where is it? It is in the region of Ladakh. This can also be important from the preliminary examination. So what do? They go to this particular glacier, they study the conditions in this glacier, and they come to a conclusion through their study that over a period of time, because of the climatic conditions which are changing, the precipitation has dropped, and at the same time there is heavy glacier melting that's happening, says this observation. So basically, according to this study which was conducted for 4 years from 2015 to 2019, it showed that the glacier is retreating at an average rate of 6.7 plus or minus 3 meter per annum, and at the same time it also says that the world is currently going through a large scale climatic change conditions where there is an increase in the temperature. This increase in the temperature is causing excessive melting even in these glaciers, and at the same time the precipitation is not happening. Even if it is happening, it is not resulting in snow but has resulted in rain, and as a result Ladakh region, in specific the Pensilungpa glacier, is bound to suffer and India may have its repercussions felt, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says tuning the private sector share in vaccine administration. The government of India came up with a policy called as liberalized pricing and accelerated national COVID-19 vaccination strategy. According to this strategy, 25% of the vaccines that are manufactured in the country will be given to the private hospitals or to the private clinics. It is these private hospitals and clinics who will be administering the vaccines to the people in the country so that they are also able to provide the vaccination. So this article here conducts a critical analysis of this policy initiated by the government of India. Why? That is because out of 100%, 25% of the vaccines that are produced in India is given to the private hospitals. But are private hospitals successful in giving administration? And at the same time, these private hospitals are also enforcing a charge as well. So the author here in this case says that this is a detrimental step initiated by the government of India. Why? That is because when you consider the previous statistics, we have the universal immunization program of India. Private facilities were able to only deliver 10 to 15% when it comes to these vaccinations, and apart from that we also have the mass vaccination campaigns as well. Let's say with respect to Japanese encephalitis, or with respect to polio, or with respect to measles. In all these campaigns, again the private sector contribution has been barely minimal or smaller in comparison to the government forces. So what is this article saying? When it comes to the vaccination programs, the contributions made by the private setup is comparatively less, says the statistics. Added to this, the government has also legitimized higher differential pricing. Ideally, the government has the responsibility, the onus, and it has made a promise that these vaccines will be provided free of cost. But when people go to these private sectors, they may also have to pay extra charges as well. Though there is a cap, it also means there is a higher differential pricing compared to the government, and at the same time the people are spending, which means the government is violating the promise, says this article. So what are the major concerns? One, because of this differential policy, there is a sustained and uninterrupted vaccine supply that is being provided to the private sector. So what is happening? Private hospitals are able to procure these vaccines. They are able to pay to the manufacturers. The manufacturers are charging 4 to 9 times more than what is being paid by the government, which is why these manufacturers are giving these vaccines more to the private sector than to the government, which means it is the poor sections in the society who would not be provided with the vaccines, but the rich and the urban class who are able to pay for these vaccines are getting the vaccines. So it means that these people are spending more for the vaccines, and this is at the cost of the poor. Apart from this, if this policy continues to happen, the poor might not get vaccinated. It means there'll be more variants in the near future. If there are more variants, we will continue to get haunted by the COVID-19 menace, and ultimately the original intention of the vaccine will also get diluted, says this article. So in order to overcome this issue, the author here has gone on to say that there has to be 100% procurement by the central government. The central government will have to procure all the vaccines. They have to distribute it to the state governments, and it is the state governments who, on the basis of priority, will have to start administering these vaccines, says the author. Added to this, as of now, there is one price given to the private, there is one price given to the central government. If the central government is taking up the prerogative of procurement, there has to be a single price for the vaccine, says the author. Even if it is being given to the private for more administration of the vaccine, in such a situation, it has to be borne by the central government, because people may not be able to afford the vaccines in certain cases, says the author. As a result, it is the central government which has to procure, give it to the state governments. The state governments have to ensure that there is this vaccines which are administered to the people in India. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Sundarbans is now drowning in plastic. What is this article all about? This article currently goes on to say that in the Sundarbans region of the West Bengal, there is unregulated inflow of the plastic, and as a result, people people are bound to suffer, says this article. When you look into Sundarbans, it is one of the UNESCO's World Heritage Site. It is home to about 2,626 fauna, including Royal Bengal tiger, Gangetic dolphins, saltwater crocodiles, threatened species of freshwater turtles as well. It is also home to 428 bird species as well. If there is more plastic in this region, this could pose a threat to the unique biodiversity, says this article. What are the various problems because of the unregulated plastic? What it will cause is the toxicity to the water. More the plastic, more the toxicity, and as a result, as it enters into the water, this will also be ingested by the fishes. It can also be ingested by the other aquatic system. These fishes are ultimately eaten by the human beings. So there is problem on all sides as this enters the ecosystem. These toxic plastics are not only restricted to Sundarbans, they may ultimately reach the Bay of Bengal region as well. So our oceans are also changed because of this plastic. This is not all. There are people who are dependent on the fishes. This is their source of livelihood. And with more and more plastic, these fishes are getting killed, and as a result, people's livelihood may also come under trouble. In order to overcome this issue, plastic should not be entering the Sundarbans region, and at the same time, NGOs should be contributing. There are other people who should be given an awareness about it, and ultimately they should be able to collect all the plastic waste so that this can be recycled in the near future. So it is not only about picking it up, but this also has to be recycled, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says second Afghan city falls into Taliban hands. The article here is speaking about Taliban capturing one of the important cities of Sheberjan. This happens to be one of the important cities in the northern Afghan province of Jozjan. Kindly remember, as of now, there is a lot of infighting between the Afghanistan government forces as well as Taliban, where the article has gone on to say that more than half of Afghanistan's 421 districts and district center are now under the control of the Taliban hands. So if you look into this image, the ones which are marked in red are under the control of Taliban. The ones which are in blue are under the control of government, and these are the areas that are in yellow, which are marked and contested by both the parties. So more the power given to the Taliban, more missiles supplied by many other countries means legitimate power with the Afghan government will get diluted with time, and Taliban would take power in Afghanistan by violent action, which may also result in death and mayhem. So this article here goes on to say that because Taliban is capturing large number of areas, this will displace the people, and at the same time this will also make people's life miserable as well, since all those places which are captured by Taliban will come under the Taliban rule. This also means people will be dislodged. They would not be able to get the supplies, they would not be able to get treatments from the hospitals, and at the same time number of public buildings which are under the control of the Afghanistan government will also get damaged during the process as well. So going forward, what we will see is more friction, more tussle between the Afghan forces as well as Taliban, where the country can end up in chaos or civil war, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Discuss the effect of climate change on the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. Next question, should the vaccine quota for private hospitals be ended? Critically evaluate. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Visit our website. You can also upload the image as well. Peer review. Do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.